Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session of the Launch and Learn series. I am Praise Benson, a junior digital marketing executive here at Futuresoft. Launch and Learn is a bi-weekly program where each staff gets to train people on topics related to our industry. If today is your first time joining us, you're welcome. Today, Temi Agbaje, our executive assistant, will be facilitating this session on the topic, the execution blueprint, building action plans that actually work. Kindly mute your mic as we continue with the session. If you have questions to ask as the session goes on, kindly drop them in the chat and they will be addressed by Temi after her presentation. Thanks for your cooperation. Over to you, Temi.
Thank you, Praise. I just want to confirm everyone can hear me then.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, all right. Thank you for starting the session. Welcome, everyone. Like Praise said, I'll be facilitating today's session. And like I had given a heads up about, it's going to be a very interactive session today because as the topic says, we're working on the execution blueprint, what I have termed the execution blueprint. And it's essentially a blueprint that helps you to build actions that help you to build action plans that actually work. Because as we all know, we all have, well, it's a very common problem to state a goal, to state a dream, to state a plan, but not actually end up executing the plan. It's a very common thing. At least if you see 5 people, 4 people will say they have a goal and not execute. Maybe one person will eventually execute, but maybe not even within the timeline that they had initially set. So I believe this session, by the end of this session, we would have a clear blueprint, a clear step-by-step plan that we could follow in executing our goals and executing plans, whether personal plans or even work deliverables. Applies to all. You can apply it in any state to any sort of goals. So I'll run through the overview. I'll start off with the introduction. Then we'll go first of all to see the pitfalls, right? Why execution fails, what exactly is the reason why this is such a common problem, and then we will go into the execution blueprint, the framework, so we can see how we can get ahead of this problem. So we could see the framework that we could apply, the step by step. So we have 5 steps in the framework that you could apply to ensure that your goals are met at the end of the day within the timeline that you have set for yourself. And then lastly, we'll talk about how to ensure momentum and motivation, right? Because it's one thing to start, it's another thing to actually follow through and see it through to the end. So we'll run through how to also ensure that we keep the same momentum or even go above, and also to stay motivated to follow through. So, like I said, welcome to the execution blueprint. I'm very glad to be taking this session. I'm going to first of all throw a question out to everyone. This is May, the Q2 of the year. We all came into 2025 with, if you're like me, a myriad of goals. Actually, because I set my goals quarterly. And we come into the year so pumped up, so ready to get things done, to meet all your goals, because you can already imagine what your life will look like at the end of the year if you're able to meet all those goals. So I'm going to throw out a question to everyone. We're going to take turns answering. What is the one goal? If it's just one, that's fine. Or if you've achieved more than one goal already, that's amazing. That you have achieved this year. And if you haven't yet, don't worry, you're part of a larger crowd who has not gotten down to achieving number one. So I would go first. This is a goal that I carried over from last year. I said I was going to start going to the gym very consistently. I said it's January 2024, all through to December 2024. But finally, I started going to the gym January 6th this year, and I have been consistent till now. I am, however, sad to say that I think so far that's the only goal I have been consistent with. I haven't been able to keep momentum with other things because, well, life gets really busy, but that's not an excuse. And that's also something we'll touch on today. So I'm going to throw it out to the open. We're actually all going to take turns, just stating one goal that we've achieved, or if we haven't achieved any, just let me know. You're part of, like I said, a larger group. There's nothing to be ashamed about. And I believe that by the end of this session, if you apply what we walk through during the blueprint and the framework, and also we have I have a worksheet for everyone to walk through. When you apply that, I believe that by the end of this month at least, you should be joining or be working towards achieving your first goal. So I'll start with Praise since he was the facilitator, and then we'll just take turns and go around. Okay, Praise, go ahead, please.
Hi, Temi. I think I'll fall into the other where you said we are yet to achieve. So I'm looking forward to your training.
No problem. Okay. Inkem, would you like to go next?
Sure. Okay, so a goal that I set at the beginning of the year that I haven't achieved or that I have achieved. So I tend not to set goals at the beginning of the year, right? Because I tend to sort of have an ongoing like 5-year strategy that has very, very long-term goals. So sometimes the question for me is not about achieving the goal, but are you contributing towards achieving that goal, right? So for example, 3 years ago, I set a goal to do my diploma in board direction at IMD, right? And it's taken pretty much 3 years to get close to achieving it. I've done all my modules. Now I need to write my exams, and there's a deadline for this, right? Am I where I need to be? No. Will I be where I need to be at the deadline? Yes, right? So I think when you want to achieve goals, you also kind of need to know yourself and whether you are, going to be able to deliver under pressure or not. And whether, the pace at which you're going is sort of sustainable or not, right? And I think that that comes only with really truly knowing yourself and a lot of experience as well, right? So I think that's like a lot of my goals are like those kind of like long-term goals. But maybe a smaller one is at the beginning of the year, I started daily journaling, and I've been pretty much consistent with that. Have I journaled every single day? No, but I've journaled on the days that I missed. I then journaled the next day for that day and for the current day. So either way, I journaled, and I think that that's also kind of like what consistency sometimes is. It's not necessarily that you can do it every day, but that you stick to it.
Yep. Thank you. I completely agree. So part of what we'll also be speaking about is how it's just sometimes small steps. It doesn't have to be running straight into the finish line, but actually taking small steps day by day, or every month, depending on how long your deadline is for the goal, to just make sure that you're on track. So yes, thank you, Ken, for sharing that. Oye, would you like to go?
Yeah, that's fine. For me, I think this year was one of those years where I came in with very, very flexible goals because I have a lot of moving parts in my life. Nothing. A huge part of it isn't something I can predict. So this is one of the years where my goals are sort of flexible, especially like personal ones. But one thing that I wanted to do is go back to school, which is something that I am in the process of. I don't, it's definitely not something that I will achieve by the end of the year because it's like a long-term program. So that's just one thing that I am focused on this year, and also like to slow down so like I get a hang of all of the moving parts in my life. So when I'm stable, enough, I can now fix like what I want. So that's what my goal for this year looks like.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for sharing. So I think I can take maybe Demilade.
Hi, Temi.
Hi.
So, my goal, I have many I've not even done, but I'll just say one where I'm on track of. So, I set out to learn how to make 5 meals this year, and I've learned how to do 2. So, I'll say I'm on track. I mean,
Yeah, you
it's
are.
not,
Started.
yeah,
You started at all. You're on track.
okay, I'm on track. So, that's that.
When are you
Thank you.
cooking for us?
Okay, you guys should let
That's
me
the we
know.
have to set up. Maybe our next team bonding will be in Dimlade's kitchen. Just
Yes.
So,
Yes. Okay.
thank you everyone for sharing. For others that haven't, there are many touch points during this entire workshop that we would all have a chance to share. So honestly, the truth is most of us are very good at dreaming, right? Setting goals easy, but execution, that's the real work. And it's not magic. There actually have to be systems set in place to ensure that we actually see these things through. I think people just assume that if I have a goal in mind, and that's even the worst thing, in the mind, not even on paper or written down any other way, but in mind, somehow, some way, magic, it'll just come and it'll just happen. Although it may seem like it has happened like that for some people, but if you actually check in depthly to their story, you will see that there were steps, even if there were tiny steps at the time, but there are steps that have rolled into the big picture that you now see now. So, like I said at the beginning of the session, by the end of today, you walk away with a framework, a practical framework to move your goals forward, and immediately. So, we'll start first with why we even failed in the first place. We've touched on some of these things, but we'll go further into it. So, um, from intention to inertia. You start and then you stop. Oh, there's no movement anymore. Momentum kind of drains down. The problem is we see the bigger picture. Um, for at least for me, and I chose this topic because it was like a very big thing and something I worked on throughout last year, ensuring that I see things to finish end. And what I have seen from also having conversations with other people is we see the bigger picture, but if you get down to the nitty gritty of it, do you actually know what you want? It's easier if you're like in chem and you've even seen 5 years into. So you see the bigger picture, you see you've broken down like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to get this diploma because of this next step, because of this and that. Then it's easier to have a longer term plan because you have actually broken it down and you know why you know your why, you know your how, you know your when. It's very clear. But people tend to just have a broader picture of these things, right? And not essentially knowing what they want. We also get really stuck because our goals are vague. The example I have on here says I want to be more consistent, but what exactly does that look like in practice, in real life, right? What do you mean by consistency? How do you intend to show up that translates into consistency in the long term, right? And to clear up a myth, consistency is not a day by day thing. It's not, oh, you show up every single day. So the day you miss it, you're no longer consistent. That's not what it is. Consistency is you show up day by day, month by month, in the time that you need to show up. The time you miss it, you don't then drop the ball. You pick the ball back up, even if it is 2 weeks later that you realize that, oh my God, this ritual I had been doing, I wake up every morning and I read my Bible. I haven't done that in 2 weeks because it's been so like crazy around here. But you don't just say, okay, well, I have free time now. You actually pick it back up. You see, that 2 week gap does not change the fact that you are consistent simply because you have picked it back up, right? So I guess people just break a routine and then it's easier for them to just be like, oh, well, I tried this, it didn't work. Well, that's not what it's supposed to be, right? And it's easier to also drop these things because, like I said, you don't know what you want in depthly. We tend to just see the big picture and it's not as motivating, right? Because it also now looks scary because it's such a huge thing to us. So these are some of the reasons at first why, because our goals are too vague and also because we haven't thought through the how, right? How do we want to do this? What does this look like in practice if I say I want to be more consistent? We're always waiting for the right and perfect time to do these things. Oh, work is too busy. Oh, school is this. Oh, you know what? It's actually Nigeria. Maybe when I leave the country. We've heard people say these things a lot of times that we've just had stable what are they called? Ikeja Electric. If they were just more stable and we didn't have to pay through our nose for lights, then okay, fair. I would actually be able to, bring this my idea of this manufacturing this or that to life. Yes, I understand that sometimes there actually might be factors that may hinder things, but if that is the reason why you haven't taken just one step, then yeah, it's not a valid reason per se. Take the first step, the second step. In fact, as you're taking the steps, you actually start to see solutions start to unfold. You'll be able to step into rooms where you hear of solutions that you probably hadn't thought of before. Also, like I said, we have unclear goals. We don't know our how, so we have no structure, and there is no pressure or accountability. That is also something that, if you notice, yeah, if you have a deadline for something, even if your entire day is filled up, if you have to stay up overnight, if you have to schedule time in your calendar for you to figure it out, you will find a way to somehow bend time and make time for this thing that you have a deadline for. So that's also one of the reasons why people tend to not execute. There's nobody holding you accountable. There's nothing that's going to go wrong in your life if you don't execute this goal, or if you don't start going to the gym, or if you don't actually write the book that you've been saying you want to write for the past 5 years. You know that there's no one to check in, there's no one to hold you accountable. Like, nobody's going to be harmed if you don't do this thing. So it just quietly dies out. You constantly make excuses and it just quietly dies out. Like we already touched on, some of the commandments is I'll get to it when I have more time, when I have more money, when I have more energy. And then people just assume also excuse me, people just assume also that motivation will carry them through. Like, yeah, I will always be this pumped as you are at the beginning of the idea. That will always be it. Even with school. So if you're someone like me that studied something you actually want to study in school, you get in, you're excited to be this big person, you're excited to, touch lives or build this or that. But as you go through, you realize that there's wear and tear in your motivation, in how big your energy is. Since it doesn't mean you have stopped loving it, or you also like don't want to achieve the goal anymore, but it's just one of the things that happens, right? You start to get burnt out. Sometimes you have to rest and get back on it. But people just say, oh, I've lost interest, or I just don't have time anymore. Like, you just assumed at the beginning that motivation will have to carry you through, when you actually had to just put systems in place so that even when your motivation is down, you know that, okay, this is your reason. You have your reason and your why clearly spelled out. You have your how clearly spelled out. And those things actually push you until you start to feel the energy and the motivation come through again. So we have examples of the type of goals that people set that just makes it easier for it to dwindle and just quietly die out. So, for example, here we have it's 3 sets of vague goals and what the specific goals should look like. So it's more accountable to you, so it's clearer, so it's smart, right? So first of all, you say, oh, I'm going to start a side hustle. What does that mean exactly? A more specific goal would be, oh, I'm going to launch a one-page website offering CV services by June 30th. You have the action you're going to take, you have the dates you would like, you have the deadline, and you have the outcome. Right, this is what I want to do, the one-page website. Why? Because I want to offer CV services, and when? By June 30th. Another example is to build a brand. I want to build a brand. Everybody says I want to build a personal brand. I want to, have my LinkedIn be optimized and this and that. Okay, so what does this mean exactly? It's too broad, so it starts to seem scary when you start to overthink it. But when you break it down to a specific goal, I want to publish 2 LinkedIn posts weekly for the next 8 weeks. You have 8 weeks blocked out in your calendar. You have reminders coming in every week or every 3 days, depending on how frequent it is. Okay, yeah, 2 posts weekly, twice a week. And you schedule time in when you're going to draft the LinkedIn posts. You schedule time in when you're going to actually make the post. It becomes so much more easier to see and so much clearer, right? So I need you or to think of a project or a goal that's been sitting on your mental to-do list. Just start thinking of it now. We'll get into the practical sense where we actually start to break down those goals. So just think of one goal that you would, it might be something small, it might not be anything, oh, huge, I want to launch this or anything. It might just be something as, oh, I want to read 3 books this quarter. I want to start journaling. And so you don't necessarily have to think of anything too big. And if it's a big thing that's been on your mind for a while now, then sure, like, yeah, should just start thinking. I will let you know when we're going to actually bring these goals into the session. So the execution blueprint framework. We're going to now start working on the practical aspect. I'm going to share a Google Doc in the chat now for everyone to open. Please make a copy, as this doc currently has just view only access. Okay, it's in the chat. So please open it. It's going to be our worksheets, and we're going to walk through it and walk through the entire blueprint, the entire framework. So it's easier to replicate even after this session. So please make a copy of the doc and we will start on the framework. Are we able to access the document? Please let me know if there are any issues. Are we able to access the document?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, we have access to the document.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the execution blueprint framework. Like I said, we have 4 parts of the execution blueprint. The blueprint, the execution blueprint is the core of everything we're doing today. So this is the actual practical aspect. I want you to think of the slides to come as your personal operating system, your personal OS for getting things done. Like I said, whether you're launching a project, a big thing, or you're just building a habit, or you're just trying to show up consistently in a particular area of your life, or you're trying to ensure that you meet more of your deliverables at work and not miss deadlines, this blueprint is designed to work every single time. Right, so let me break it down. So first of all, we have the clarity. First, we have clarity. This is where execution actually begins. What is the goal? What exactly is the goal? You need to define exactly what you're trying to achieve, not just the general idea, but the real target, right? So too often we confuse effort with progress, but if we're not clear on the finish line, we're just spinning wheels. We're literally just, on a treadmill. We think we're actually moving forward. So for example, I want to start writing again is so big, right? But I want to publish 1 newsletter a month for the next 3 months. That's clearer. That's something you can break down. So clarity creates focus. Without it, you can't measure progress and you definitely can't finish if you don't even know what the finish line is, right? Secondly, we have the breakdown. Once you know where you're headed, once you have clarity, the next thing is to turn that goal into bite-sized chunks. We will still go deeper into each of these things later on. So the next thing, like I said, is to turn those goals into bite-sized chunks and make them manageable, trackable tasks that are just smaller that you can achieve day by day, or at least they don't seem too heavy to do all at once. So you break them down to little tasks that you can do, checking in. So because execution doesn't happen in huge leaps, it's not just I'm going to sit down for 6 hours today, tomorrow, next. You're going to burn out, or you're going to get demotivated, or you're going to get bored, because we all respond to being confined into one thing differently. But the one thing's for sure is not going to be a necessarily positive outcome, because your brain is not able to rest, one of it, then you're not able to step out and do other things and then recharge creatively, then come back to it, right? So it doesn't happen in huge leaps. You have to take it step by step. It happens in daily choices. So think of this like translating your big dream into a to-do list that does not intimidate you. Something that you look at and you're like, okay, I understand that this is the big goal, but this this little thing here is all I have to do. All I have to do right now is determine what topic I want to write in this newsletter that I have decided I want to create. Right. So what topics do I want to speak on this month? That seems less scary than I need to publish 3 posts this week or this month rather. Right. So translating your big dreams into a to-do list that doesn't intimidate you. And if your goals feel overwhelming, it is a sign that you haven't broken it down far enough. Right. You want tasks so small that you can't say no to them. If you see it, to be like, oh, I can't do this right now, because even in your mind, you're like, but this is something I'll probably get done in 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Why am I moving this off? So you want to break them down that small that you won't feel silly to pass on them or to make up excuses not to get them done. right? Thirdly, we have time. And time is a huge game changer if you know how to work it. If a task is honestly not in your calendar or written down somewhere, then it's not real, to be very honest, because life will happen. You're gonna forget that you're supposed to get this thing done. So if it is not scheduled somewhere in your calendar or written down somewhere that you can see and know that, okay, this is what I have to do along during my day or for my week, and then this is where this particular task is scheduled for this particular goal to be achieved, then this goal is not real. Whatever goal it is not real. So we all have a mental to-do list, right? But until you give a task a home in your schedule, it's just floating around. It's just something you hope to do, you want to do, you get to it. It's not something you're actually going to get done. So time blocking, scheduling, writing it down, penciling it down is actually being intentional. It turns intention into action. And the great thing is once it's visible, it's easier to protect, it's harder to ignore. Yeah. And you can say, no, I have a writing block on Saturday by 10 a.m. It gives you more power, more intention to it. And finally, we have accountability. So this is your staying power. We're human, we drift, we delay, we get overwhelmed, we forget, we get distracted. Accountability brings us back. Sometimes it's as simple as a check-in body. Personally have someone who we agreed at the beginning of this year, we're going to hold each other by the necks and say, okay, this particular thing, which is so big about your brand, so big about this goal that you want to achieve, I am going to stay on you about it. I'm going to check in with you about it weekly, right? And just ask you, what have you done? Oh, why didn't you get this done? Okay, when are you going to make up for it for missing the deadline that you had set for yourself? It makes it easier to actually remind yourself that this thing is important. It makes it easier to get back on track times when your consistency breaks because, like I said, life happens. The point is, you're not leaving your progress to chance or emotion. You're building structures that actually keep you honest with these blueprints. So that's it, your blueprints. You get clear, you break it down, you schedule it, and you stay accountable. The framework is very simple but powerful if you actually use it the right way, if you actually stick to it. And the best part is, you can, like I said, you can apply it to any area of your life. We're going to go through each part now in detail. So remember the goal I had said you should think of, the one thing that you would like to actually get done before the end of this quarter or before the end of the year or whatever timeline works for you because you know your goal. I would like you to write it down in the documents that you have copied, and we will start working on our blueprints for our goals. So I am going to um, give us like a minute. I do want to say that at the end of the call, at the end of the session, I am going to ask one or two people to share, if they don't mind, their goal and maybe what they've broken it down into and their task and the deadlines they have set for themselves. So I would please ask that we all participate, we all use the documents um, and run through the session with me. Okay. So I believe we've all written it down, we've all thought it through. Please give me a thumbs up so I know if I can move on. Or should I just give us 10 more seconds? Thumbs up. Are we good? Have we written down our goal? Okay. All right. So, step one. And honestly, step one is the foundation of everything. We already spoke about this a bit. If you skip this step, there's no system, there's no planner, there's no motivational video that will help you get things done consistently if you don't even know what you're trying to do, because you won't be working towards anything specific. So it's like trying to hit a target with a blindfold on, right? So let's slow it down and really try to get into it. To get a clear outcome, right, you have to ask yourself these three questions. What exactly do I want to achieve? Not just what sounds good, not just what seems interesting or what someone else is doing. What do you want to see happen? What are you visualizing the end of this tunnel is going to look like? Right? That's the first question. So ask yourself that question to gain clarity on why you have chosen this goal. The next question is, how will I know when it's done? This is very critical. This helps you engage your mind and actually see what the finish line is going to look like. Vague goals like be consistent or get serious have no finish line. So a clear goal has evidence. How will you know when it's done? You can point to it and say, yes, I did that, right? The last question is, why is this important to me right now? Not someday, not next year. Why does this matter now? That's your emotional anchor. That's what will keep you going. That's what you have to keep reminding yourself of when motivation kind of goes low. Because like we said, clarity beats motivation. If your why isn't strong enough, you build the first time things get hard, get boring, seem more complicated than you thought. You would actually just drop the goal and tell yourself you pick it back up later. Right now is not the right time, right? And then that's just going to be the end of it. It's going to go to a graveyard of ideas that a lot of people have. So let's look at an example of how we can set clear goals. You might start with, I want to grow my brand. Sounds great, but what does it mean actually? It's We have to make it clear and measurable. So I want to gain 500 new followers by August by posting 3 times weekly. Now we have a metric, 500 new followers. We have a deadline, August, right? And we have a method, how you're going to get it done, posting 3 times weekly. Hi, Praise, are you saying
Thank you.
something?
No, please, sorry.
Posting 3 times weekly, right? So that's execution ready clarity. You're clear on it. You know what the metric is. That is what it's going to look like at the end of the day. That's how you will know that it's done, right? You have your deadline. You have your method, how you're going to get it, how you're going to get it done. Clarity beats motivation every single time. Motivation is great for starting. Yes, it keeps you pumped, it makes you excited, but clarity is what will help you actually finish. Because when you're tired, you're distracted, or sometimes you're just like, why am I even doing this? Like, nobody actually sent me to do any of this. Clarity is what will keep you going because you remember why you sent yourself or why you embarked on the journey, right? So then we move to step 2. Step 2 is something I term chunk the mountain. So the visual here is you see a huge mountain, and you're wondering how, like you see your goals as a huge mountain, and you're wondering how am I actually going to achieve this one thing, right? And this term, chunk the mountain, is literally what it states: break it down into little chunks, and then break it down further into smaller chunks, right? So here we have the project pyramid. We have the goals on top, the milestones, and the tasks. So that's how we break it down. So once you're clear on what you're aiming for, it's time to chunk the mountain. That means you're breaking big, shiny goals into smaller, doable pieces. Smaller. And like we said at the beginning, if the goal still seems scary after you've broken it down, then you haven't broken it down far enough. We want to break it down to the point where it's small tasks that you feel silly procrastinating. You feel silly giving excuses as to why you haven't done them, right? Because if you try to eat the whole big goal, you will most likely avoid it altogether because it gets scary and then you keep procrastinating because all you're seeing is a huge mountain, this huge goal in front of you. So, like I said, think of this as a project pyramid. At the top of the pyramid is your goal. That's the final outcome, the ultimate, what you're actually working hard towards. In the middle, you have your milestones, the big checkpoints or phases that tell you are making progress. And then at the base, you have your tasks, tiny, manageable actions, the clear tasks that you are going to see and you're like, okay, I can do this today. Okay, I can spare 30 minutes to get this done. Right. So let me show you this in action. You have a goal that says, I want to launch a newsletter by 1st of July. Sounds exciting. But it also sounds like a lot, especially if you have a full-time job and other things that you're doing. So we're going to break it down using the pyramid method. So your first milestone is choose a platform. Where, right? That's one chunk of the mountain. The related task will be to further break it down. And your first task will be to compare Substack or MailChimp. Where do I even want to? What platform do I even want to launch this newsletter on? And I have to decide on this by the end of the week. You see, it's smaller. We turned an ambiguous starting point into a specific trackable task with a deadline. It's easier to get through now. You know the first thing you have to do this week, which you could probably do in 10 to 20 minutes, is compare Substack versus MailChimp. Make that decision this week, and then you move to the next thing, probably next week. right? Then the second milestone you have is to create a template. Now we're moving further down the road. Your task here would be to design your layout and send a test mail, right? Not, oh, I want to create a beautiful newsletter. No, you're just going to design the layout and you're going to test the structure, see if you like what comes out. You jot down your feedback to yourself. You can even share with your accountability partner or other friends, receive their feedback, and okay, that is the task, it is done, right? Then the third, not the last milestone we have here is write 3 startup posts. That seems like a very heavy creative task to sit down and constantly tell yourself, I have to write 3, I have to write 3. Why don't we just chunk that also, break it down? I would draft the first post by Friday. Now your emotion, right? It's easier to say, okay, all I have to think about right now by Friday is drafting the first post, not the constant heavy feeling of, oh my God, I have to get started. I have to write 3 startup posts. I have to do this. I have to do that. Just break it down. What's the first thing I have to get done? This has made the big goal of I want to launch a newsletter by the 1st of July using small steps every day consistently make the goal look smaller, makes the goal look more achievable. The structure helps in so many ways, right? It will help you always know what to do next. Even when you're tired or busy, you know what it is you're supposed to do this time. And it's not a huge thing. It's not multiple things. It's just your subtask, your tiny manageable task for the day, for the week, or however you time it. And it also helps you build momentum because you're hitting milestones and you're seeing progress. You're happy, you know the platform, then you have the template, then you have your first draft. It helps you build momentum. You're happy to keep going, right? So now it's your turn. So with the goal that you have written in the documents, I want us to take a minute or two to run through what would be your first 2 to 4 milestones, and then let's break down one of those milestones into 2 subtasks, little tasks that we can get done. I'm going to just let a minute run through so we could think through it, and also going to leave it on this slide so you could look at the example and also try and apply that to your goal. Again, we'll probably be revisiting these goals at the end of revisiting our worksheets at the end of the session. So I encourage us to, just run through this. Like I said, 2 to 4 milestones. It could just be 2 if you can think of more. Of course, you can write down more. And then for one of the milestones, break it down into 2 smaller tasks that'll be easier for you to do. Remember to keep tasks small. Keep them small enough to do in one sitting. And also the tasks should feel actionable, not overwhelming, right? So also keep that in mind. And if you're having trouble, no problem, just write whatever comes to your mind and we can refine it. You could signify at the end of the session when we're reviewing and we can refine it then. Okay, 30 seconds more. Just wait. Okay, so now we move to step 3. Are we still here? Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. Are we still here?
Yeah, Temi.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, I hope we're following through. I hope I'm not moving too fast, but if I am, please let me know. So step 3 now, we have time it or lose it. We already spoke about how a very important part of ensuring you see your goals through is actually scheduling it and making sure you have time for it. I have a quote on here that says a goal without a timeline is just a wish, and it's simply just that because it's just constantly be floating because you haven't made time for it. There's this is sort of where someday becomes a real day, because if you're able to create an actual timeline, Monday, Tuesday, or next Friday, you are more likely to actually execute the goal. So we're going to go through some concepts here. First of all, we have reverse planning. And this is something I actually learned from one of my wonderful mentors earlier this year, to think of what your deadline and finish line would be and plan backwards from that, right? So you already know this is the big goal. The deadline is July 31st. You want to plan backwards from that and break tasks down up until the current day, right? So what do I have to achieve 2 weeks before the deadline, a week before the deadline, 3 weeks before, a month before, till today? Work backwards that way so it's easier to execute, right? What needs to be finished the week before? What milestones have to be met halfway at the halfway point? What can I do this week right now? So for example, you're trying to launch a personal website in 4 weeks. You plan it backwards, right? So of course at week 4 you want to test and go live, which means at week 3 you have to write the content and do design edits. But before that, week 2 you have to have chosen your templates and customize your layout. Week 1 you have to have researched the platforms you would use and gather your branding assets and what you want it to even look like. Now week 1 becomes this week and you know what you're doing. You're able to break down week 1's tasks even into smaller tasks that you can get through during the week. 30 minutes in the day, an hour in the day, and just get through it. Right? So that's reverse planning, kind of working backwards, starting from your goals deadline. Secondly, we have time blocking. So assign fixed time slots to your tasks. Don't just write work on presentation. You have to block 3 to 5 p.m. on Thursday. Then you know that, okay, I'm actually going to get this thing done. It reduces friction and decision fatigue because at least you know when you're going to work on it. It no longer has to be a source of anxiety or a source of worry that, oh, I have to get this thing done. You know it's on your calendar already for 3 to 5 p.m. on Thursday. So it's easier for you to just treat it like a non-negotiable appointment. You show up, right? And that's actually a very important tip, to treat your solo tasks like meetings. Show up for them regardless that you would do for clients meetings. It makes it so much easier to actually follow through. Then we have Parkinson's law. So Parkinson's law actually states work expands to fill in the time available. And I feel like this is something we have all experienced. You keep putting off a task, and because let's say it's due 31st of May, and you keep putting it off, saying, oh, I don't have time right now, I don't have time right now. If your schedule becomes even more full, even more busy the week before the 31st, let's say your workload even doubles the week before the 31st, I assure you, you're going to work to expand your time, and you're going to find time during that last week leading up to your deadline to actually achieve the task, because there is a deadline for it. So that's exactly what Parkinson's law states. Work expands to fill the time available. So if you give yourself a week to write the email, it will actually take a week. But if you had a shorter deadline, if someone said, oh, can you please send me a draft in 30 minutes, you would actually get it done in 25 minutes and read through with the last 5 minutes you have and send it to them. But if they said, oh, please take a week, send it to me at the end of the week, it's going to take a week, right? That's why deadline and time blocks work. If not, we will just keep postponing things, right? These things create urgency. They make sure that we actually get the work done, get the tasks done. Lastly, you can make it visual. Use a weekly planner, Google Calendar, or a task board like Trello or Notion. Your timeline should be easy to see and very hard to ignore. I think we ignore ourselves so much, especially if they are personal tasks, because we just always feel like other things are way more important, right? So now we move to, typo, step 4, building accountability. So accountability is the glue that keeps your goals from sleeping. I say this from personal experience because having people who come to lovingly harass you, that's what my friends call it, lovingly harass you about your goal, actually keeps you on your toes, because you don't want them to come back the next time and give you the judgy eyes and say, but you said you were going to do this, right? So we've now built clarity, we've broken things down, made a plan, we scheduled time, right? There's one more ingredient, which is this accountability. Accountability works because it creates friction in regards to you quitting, because there will be people right, who would ask you questions, and you have to kind of prepare yourself for that. So most of the time we try to avoid that, so we actually just get the work done, right? Because I don't know if it's just a me thing, but if people have to constantly ask me for things, I start to feel the type of way of about not even like not having gotten the job done in the first place. So accountability builds that friction to quitting. You're not you're less likely to quit. It's not as easy anymore because now there are people watching you, there are people counting on you, there are people asking you questions, there are people who believe in you and express it, right? When other people know your goal, you're more likely to follow through. Not because you're scared of judgment, but because you created a commitment loop, right? It forms sort of like a psychological leverage or an emotional leverage where you know you have to actually have to see this thing through. So there are three types of accountability that we'll just quickly run through here. We have self accountability. It's the foundation where you set aside 10 to 15 minutes weekly to reflect. I had spoken about this actually on my LinkedIn, I think 2 weeks ago, where I mentioned how Sunday evenings are kind of like my review days. I sit at my desk, I review the to-dos from the week before, the to-dos for the week coming up, and just kind of schedule everything and see where everything will fit. Right. Of course, sometimes everything may move around because the week can come with its unexpected tasks or deliverables, but at least you had a plan going in rather than everything being scattered. Right. So you look at the week before and the week to come, you think about what worked, what didn't work, what needs adjusting. You can do this in a journal, a checklist, or digital tracker, like Notion or Trello, like we had mentioned. I personally use a pen and my jotter because I just like to write things down. This way, you're building self awareness, and with that comes progress. Secondly, we have social accountability. Sometimes we need a gentle nudge, an accountability partner, or a small group of people who are also invested in your growth can keep you grounded and encouraged. So you're not meant to do everything alone. We're social beings, right? A check in, even just via WhatsApp or an email or a phone call, 5 minute phone call. Oh, I'm just checking in about this that you shared with me. Have you been able to start working on it? It can really make a difference between follow through and you just ghosting your goals, right? Um, and then lastly, we have public accountability. So people do this a lot on LinkedIn where they want people to hold them accountable. And I feel like it's actually very powerful. I don't think I have the courage yet, but you may all be more courageous than me, where they actually go public and just tell, it could even be your team, in the workplace or community on LinkedIn or any other social media platform, and you tell them this is what I'm trying to get done. You instantly raise the stakes. You have to absolutely get it done because you yourself came to announce it, right? So it's as simple as, hey, I'm launching XYZ by next Friday. This is the deadline. And you just announce that simply to your community, to your friends, to your co-workers. There's instant pressure because the likelihood that there's someone who's going to remember and actually ask you, oh, hi, it's Friday. Any updates? What's going on with that? Right. I don't use this sparingly, um, but strategically because actually help you see things through. So let's I would actually advise, because it's actually a very useful step in this, whether it be self accountability, making time out to look through your schedule, look through your tasks, look through your progress so far, social accountability, or in the off chance where it's that serious and you actually want to hold yourself very accountable, public accountability, right? And it's easier to quit on yourself than on someone else. We tend to take tasks that are not it's necessarily personal tasks more serious than the goals we personally want to achieve for our life, right? So we have run through the steps. Now we're going to run through momentum and mindset. This particular section is all about keeping the engine running. Right now, you know your how, you know your when, you know your why, you know your what, you know what you want to do. You've broken it down. You know your tasks day by day. Right. This is about keeping the engine running because the truth is most goals don't die from lack of talent or time. They die from lost momentum. You start off with a bang and so it slowly starts to dwindle. On starting small, right? Because people also, like I said, even after they've broken it down, it still feels like this is going to be a long process, and then it seems very something they start to dread, even though something they were once excited about. I would say dip your toe before you dive. Have you ever stood at the edge of a pool? It's really cold. You can tell that it's cold. You've even been told that it's cold, but people are swimming in the pool, right? And you're hesitating. But once you dip your toe in, your mind starts to think, oh, actually, it's not that bad, right? And then you dip your ankle in, and then for your knee deep in, and then you're actually in the pool, right? So it's easier once you dip your toe in. That's what small actions do. They break the seal. Just do one thing, one 5-minute task, one Google search to actually even see, okay, what website is this? Where do I search this on? Just something small. Rather than waiting for the perfect moment, just start small. One click, one message, one paragraph, one phone call, one Google search. That's enough to actually spark progress, right? And then we have the 2-minute rule. The rule comes from productivity expert David Allen. If it takes less than 2 minutes, don't plan it, just do it right now. It's going to take you less than, and actually helps me a lot, because things that I would ordinarily write in my to do, I realized that this is something I could just do right now. It's just a phone call, it's just an email, and I just do right then. If not, it's just be piling up and actually start to seem bigger than what it actually is, right? So if it takes less than 2 minutes, just do it. And I also wanted to share some mindset shifts that could keep you going. So moving from taking progress over perfection. We're not supposed to do perfectly because we're human. You're supposed to just move. Let it be messy at the beginning, sure, but just move, right? And because messy action beats no action. Don't wait until the idea is polished, um, aesthetically pleasing. Draft it, test it, just learn as you go. And you don't need to sprint every day, right? Just track your progress. As long as you don't stop, that's all that matters, right? So we have all the steps, we have the what's it called? Breakdown of everything. We have our blueprints, we have our framework, right? But there will still be blocks that may come along, like losing your motivation. Remember your why. Reconnect with your why. Why did you start this? What future result am I looking towards? What future result am I excited about? Right? How would I feel at the end of this goal? Remember the why to keep going. Secondly, you could feel stuck, right? If you ever feel stuck, and you're staring at your task and you're dreading it and you're thinking, how am I actually going to get this done? Break it. Chunk it a little bit more. Break it into smaller, lighter steps so that you could just start to get it done. Can you do just the first 2 minutes of the task? Can you just open the document and actually look at it? First of all, don't think about the huge thing anymore. Just break it into smaller, manageable tasks and start with the smallest one, right? And if you feel like you're falling behind, like we had mentioned at the beginning of the call, don't just abandon it, right? Missing a day or sleeping on a deadline, rather, is not the end of your plan. It doesn't mean you're not consistent. It doesn't mean you're not hardworking. You're not dedicated. Plans are there to support you, not punish you or make you feel bad about yourself. So instead of quitting, revise the plan, right? Build in flexibility, not guilt. Okay, give yourself grace. Sometimes you're just burnt out. Rest, then come back to the task. Execution is not perfection, it's about persistence and actually following through. So now we've come to the end of this. We'll run through the blueprints now. So we have step one: clarity beats motivation, chunk the mountain, make time, build accountability. So now we're going to run through what we have worked on and how we have chunked our tasks. Peter, I'm going to start with you. But okay, then I'll start with Peter. Hi, Peter, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Temi. I didn't feel the whole shit, right?
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
So yeah, so for me, what I just filled in was, to complete. I'm currently working on the course, which has been for a long while now. Um, so my goal at the end of it is to actually, have an excellent ability to solve, client related problems, issues, maybe a project, a strategy, whatever it is to implement, right? And how will it help me? It will help me, in a way where I would, deliver this task without having to um, understand the problem better, right? Basically, let me just put it like that: understanding the problem better. So I broke it down with three phases because, like, the course speaks to design thinking and it speaks to project management. So the first one is to master the design thinking framework. Another is to develop and manage a complete project lifecycle, which I believe I have like a good knowledge of this. But there are things that come along the way. That there are ways you can actually handle a project, escalate when there's an issue, you escalate and manage it properly. And then the third part is to collaborate on cross-functional team projects, right? So every part of the team, I'm well aware, I'm very quite up to speed as to what needs to be done and that. So also the micro tasks, you mentioned that there are parts where what are the small manageable tasks for your first milestone, right? So the breakdown is to study which is the first milestone, which is on design thinking, right? To study and watch, the design thinking video to understand how it's implemented. Also be able to read through, and have a should I say a first-hand summary in your head as to how it's implemented, not just by there's one thing to study or read something, and it's one thing to actually understand it fully. Very important. And then the third micro task is to, sketch and write out the 5 stages, because there are 5 stages of it to implement it. So this is like understanding first milestone in detail.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you set due dates for them?
I didn't get that.
Did you set due dates for your tasks? So you could hold
No,
yourself.
I didn't. No, I didn't. I think I failed on that.
No, you didn't feel. So that's very important to have target dates for the milestones first of all, and then from the dates you set from the milestones to now have due dates for the smaller tasks. So it's easier to hold yourself accountable, and schedule it also, so you're able to remember. So the tasks aren't just floating. Okay. Thank you, Peter. Tony, would you like to share?
So my goal is so I've been learning a new language for like a while, like a few years on and off. And so my larger goal was to get more fluent this year.
Okay.
And so my milestone was to learn sentence and grammar structure, one of my milestones. The second one is to be able to speak in simple sentences about my day. And the third one is to be able to speak at length about different topics. I didn't set target dates for the larger milestones. And so the micro task is to go through a grammar textbook I got recently. And the due date I set for myself was next week, Monday, but I don't know how realistic that is.
If you schedule it in, I promise it is. You could do 30 minutes per day right before you go to sleep, or one of your tasks when you get up in the morning. It makes it easier, right? To run through it. You don't have to sit in one place and run through it for like 3 hours. Then that's too big. You have to break it down a bit more. Yeah.
Okay, and then another task is to practice by writing a sentence about my day every day.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's about how far I got in the worksheet.
That's fine. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. I would encourage us all to just run through the blueprint, the worksheet, and try to fill it all out, especially the dates. Certainly, time is so important. If not, the task is just floating, like I said. And yes, use this. Share with me when you finish it, if you want to. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all the goals we're able to achieve by the end of Q2, by the end of the year, in 3 years, because now we're able to actually have a blueprint to break things down. And I hope this has been helpful, enlightening. And if you have any questions, then I'm here to answer.
Thank you so much, Temi, for that session. It was quite engaging and interactive. Well done for putting this together.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Please, does anyone have a question for Temi? All right, I believe the silence means no. Okay, in the absence of questions, we can now bring the session to an end. Please note that this video will be available on our YouTube channel. And if you have questions while watching the video, kindly drop them in the comment section. We'll be very happy to answer your questions. Join us next time for another exciting, insightful session of the Launch and Learn series. And do have a good day.